Some views on where we're at in terms of our economic growth and our prowess, and whether it is likely to do what most of us would like to see a country do, and that is, of course, to grow, baby, grow. So we're poised for growth, very strong growth set against the backdrop of the other G7 members, second to the United States, but we've got a big inflation issue as well. So, growth, brilliant. Okay, 1.3%. It's not, going to make any history books in that respect, but we've got an inflation issue as well to deal with. Can we weather that storm and come out, at least feeling that we're finally on the up? I'm not sure. Let's speak with Helen Whately, Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary, Conservative MP for Faversham, of course. Helen, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
It's always a tricky one, isn't it? Now you're an opposition MP, and of course you've worked in the Treasury, so you know this terrain really well. Naturally, we all want to go, hey, we've got good news for our country, but you're also an opposition MP, so that's sometimes hard to say that out loud. Nonetheless, you are loyal to the nation. What do you make of this latest move that our growth is going to be, well, second to the United States? House points all round.
Well, look, I would welcome any good news on growth, but the figures I've been looking at today, and it's literally on the ticker under the screen, is about unemployment rising. And so what we're seeing is unemployment going up. We're seeing vacancies going down and young people being hit particularly hard by those trends. So those figures are things that are really worrying me. Of course, statistics, you can talk about statistics all you like, but I think about the real people that is affecting. And those are people who are being made redundant, unable to get into work, young people unable to get their first job. And I hear that directly from people I speak to about how hard they're finding it to get into work. Or on the other hand, businesses that are telling me that they've decided not to recruit, not to hire people. And actually, they're telling me that that is specifically as a result of the government's decisions. And I think this is one of the really hard truths. So I'm saying, and not just because I'm in opposition, not just because it's my job, but also just because it's a fact that these things are a consequence of some of the choices that the government has been making. So their choices with the jobs tax in the last budget, making it more expensive for businesses to hire people, the employment rights bill that they've got going through at the moment, which is again putting businesses off hiring people because it makes it riskier for them to do so. Yeah. All those things are destroying the opportunities for people, and you're seeing that playing through in these figures.
Some may just extrapolate from this, Helen. Well, look, okay, there's lots of facets to all of these graphs, and any economist will know you can, look at it from 20 different angles, and if you ask two economists what the answer or the resolution to something is, you get very different answers. However, the headline is that we're poised to be the second highest, poised for strong G7 growth, second highest in the G7. That would be a good thing, right? It's 1.3%, so we're not talking about record-breaking numbers here, but better than a kick in the old shins, as they say.
I would welcome an improved picture on growth compared to what we've seen with this government. I mean, when we went out of government at the general election, we handed over to them a country which had the highest growth in the G7 and inflation right back down at the target rate around 2%. So, they've made a set of decisions that have damaged growth and meant we've had higher inflation. That's made people feel poorer, less money in their pockets compared to the cost of things that they have to buy. And actually, the other bit of news that came out this morning in the data is about wages and how we're seeing particularly wages in the private sector at the lowest level for 4 years. The wage picture has been slightly improved by the fact that there's rises in the public sector pay. Otherwise, overall, it would be much worse. But people in the private sector are really seeing their wages hit against, as I said, inflation has been higher than it would have been otherwise, making people worse off. And as I say, the job situation, it's not just the data. The data is very much backed up by the conversations that I have. I go all around the country speaking to businesses, speaking to people looking to get into work. And the businesses, literally a couple of weeks ago, a business said to me, because of the jobs tax, their wage bill is up, I think it was £1 million, and that they are going to not be hiring as they would people without a track record because of the employment rights bill is going to make that really difficult for them. So these decisions by the government are just making it harder for businesses and harder for jobs. It's, to me, as a Conservative, it's not the right way to run our economy and to make people better off.
I kind of assumed that was all going to go by the wayside when Angela Rayner had to kind of walk the plank, because she was pretty much the engine room behind a lot of this. But it seems to have remained, and Labour seem to be in a sort of, I appreciate it's fairly left-wing predisposition anyway, to be in a perpetual state of injustice, where you look around you and you see, oh my goodness, we've got some of the toughest workers' rights in the world, as you know, Helen. And in fact, I think even EU law took a lot of our existing laws onto their books back in the day. So we didn't really need any more tinkering, but tinker is what Labour like to do, and they haven't stopped in a year or more now.
Well, the fact is, and this has become so evident to me seeing them in government, is that Labour are very close to the trade unions. And many Labour MPs were funded as candidates by the trade unions. They have really close links. So the Employment Rights Bill is very strongly driven by the trade unions. And no, I'm all for making sure that businesses are fair employers and look after their staff. And so of course, it's right for there to be things that make sure that there's a balance on both sides. But the fact is that the way Labour is taking things with the Employment Rights Bill is just going so far in one direction. And as I said, it just means that businesses, for instance, feel like they can't take a risk on somebody. No, it's a great thing as an employer to be able to employ somebody who doesn't have much of a track record, but you meet them or they're really keen for the job, they've got a good story to tell, you're going to take a risk on them. But you're less likely to take a risk on them if you don't have a period when you can make sure that it works out and let them go if it doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought that was fairly standard stuff. But, hey, we're in strange times. Helen, lovely to have you on with us. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate that. Helen Whately, she is Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary. Thank you to her. Conservative MP for Faversham, Maxwell.